Hey everybody, coming at you with our Wednesday show. Troy and I haven't given it a name yet, but right
No, we
now it's
haven't.
Our Wednesday show. But this week we have a very special guest, Miss Rossi Gifford. How you doing, Rossi?
I'm great. How are you?
Good, good,
Very
fantastic.
well. I guess it's the Canadian network tonight, because we're
That's right.
all Cam and I are in the same place, but Rossi's in Toronto. So
I know. I'm one of those folks.
no, Toronto's awesome.
I like it. I think it's pretty neat.
How long have you been there now?
It's about 5 years now.
Okay.
It feels longer because I used to visit a lot, like during school. So
Yeah.
I technically like been around the city for like 7 years, but I've been living for 5. So that's why I get a bit confused of like it feels I've been here for much longer, but
So when you moved, was it straight to Toronto?
yeah.
So you've only lived in Toronto then in Canada?
Yeah, only in Toronto, but I've visited a lot of towns in Canada. Like I've been to Moncton of all places. That
Oh,
was
really?
yeah, it was actually a blast. It was
Yeah,
really
Moncton's awesome.
it's great, and it was lots of lovely people there. It was for a comic show, and I was
Mhm.
like, I don't know where this is and what it's like, but I'm going. And it was a great weekend. It was with Kerry Nord and other people, and we were just like small show, but it was
Yeah.
a lot of fun, and everyone took care of us and everything. And I've been to Saskatchewan, obviously,
Yeah.
in Saskatoon.
God's country.
Yes, and obviously Montreal. But I haven't been to BC yet. I would like to go further west.
Yeah, I mean, I lived in Vancouver for 18 years before
Hmm.
we moved to Calgary. But yeah, BC's beautiful.
Yeah, it looks amazing.
Beautiful. Yeah.
All those mountains and water. It's reminiscent of home.
So it's funny because I keep forgetting. Is there anyone tuned in, Cam, watching
Yep,
this?
yep. We
Usually
got
people
six
are
folks.
usually people are saying hello by now, but no one said anything. But
Well, I think we're usually like 8 or 9 minutes late.
that's true.
Uh,
Are we on time?
Well,
we're
no,
only
we're only 3 minutes. We were only 3 minutes late this time.
Oh, okay.
yeah. We'll get to the viewers will come at that 9 10 minute mark. So.
But it's funny because I keep forgetting that when we do this on Wednesday, and Wednesday is of course New Comic Book Day. I did not go to a comic book shop today. Did you, Can?
Yes, I did.
Ooh, what'd you pick up?
Oh,
I picked up Dylan's Ant-Man #4,
Okay.
and then I picked up is it Jacques Tardy?
Yep.
I picked up one of his books.
Oh,
Actually,
interesting.
I'm glad you brought that up because I was in the comic shop for an hour today deciding what to buy. And because I always like to buy stuff from our group.
Yep.
And so I bought something from Brandon last week, from Brett the week before. And this week I was just back and forth. I was going to buy, I walked out and I saw Brandon's art book or Royal Boiler.
Okay.
And I had another book. So what was it called? I can't remember. I always flip flop between the European section, the indie section, try and find stuff for our group. But I was in there for an hour. I had 3 books in my hand, and I didn't walk out with one of them. I went back and got the other 2. It was a disaster. But I am pumped to read what I got. So
well, Tardy's a good pickup. Always good. He's been around for a really long time. So he's an institution in France.
I kind of wondered because I just do a little research and I can't remember if Jason Kim, I don't know if Jason's on here. I think he might have recommended some Tardy to me at some point as well. So
I probably would have talked to you about him as well because I'm a big fan of his. But yeah, he probably get it from a lot of people. He's been around forever. So
yeah, no, I'm pretty pumped. I'm on the Frederick Peters kick because of you, Troy.
Yeah.
But I got through Pachyderm last week.
Yep.
Which was amazing. That was awesome. But I wasn't sure what to get this week, so
it looks like we might be having some technical issues here. Dylan's having troubles as well as Mikkel.
Okay. I wonder if. Oh,
This has never happened before, Rossi. We don't know what to do.
Shit, was it me? Did I cross it?
Oh, Dylan says now it seems to be stable. Well, maybe we just keep plugging ahead. Just guys, let us know if it is. Oh, Miguel doesn't even have an image.
Oh, geez. Because usually we're relatively seamless on our end, just amongst each other. Sound, video's good as well. Well, anyone else watching, just let us know if you're having issues.
Is that Miguel? I want to make sure I'm not calling someone by it's just the initials, but I think that's the same image he uses. That is him, okay.
And there are currently 3 commissions by the group, led by you, Troy, that are working on stuff for him right now.
Oh, nice.
And they're all outstanding. So I was going to curse his name a little bit this week because he's getting some crazy stuff. So, yeah.
So it appears to be working on laptops, but other devices not so much. So I don't know what to suggest. I'm a Luddite in most of these areas, so.
Yeah. Just big screen, projector screen.
Yes.
On a wall.
Streaming the theater.
Well, let's keep plugging ahead, and if it drops out, then then I guess but that'll be it. It'll be a short conversation.
Okay.
But Rossi, did you get to a comic shop today?
No.
No, I know. You were probably drawing like me.
Yeah. Yeah, I've just been working. I haven't collected comics like I used to. Like maybe like 3 years ago, I used to go in and get some stuff, but I wasn't like a consistent buyer. But now it's like nothing. Like I maybe like find like an art book or like a graphic novel I like, but I've been pretty slow on that too. Like I don't know what's going on in the comics world.
Yeah, well, that's not that uncommon, I think, amongst creators. No, at least when I'm talking to folks, they sort of know what's going on in their peer group, especially what their friends are doing. But outside of that, like we know, like Cam and I know Riley Rosmo, and he's at the comic shop religiously every Wednesday. Of course, he lives a block away from the shop, but yeah. But most creators, I think, are sort of head down and working, which is
just trying to meet
a good
those
thing.
deadlines. Because the only one series I'm remotely interested in is Dylan's book that he's doing for Ant-Man. Like that's the only series I'm kind of like I want to collect that as a whole because I adore Dylan's work. He's great.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to think if there's anything else I've been kind of like. The only other book I want to get is Dan Panogian's book is Sloths. And that's like in my list, but right now it's kind of like I'm just trying to get my own deadlines done.
Yeah, well, you're kind of going between 2 industries as well. I mean, there's obviously lots of middle ground in there, but working in animation and working in comics, how do you juggle that?
Just do it.
You just do it. Like, do you sort of schedule specific time for comics, or just I have a moment here, I'll work on stuff, or like Wednesdays from 4 till 9 is comic making time?
I know like what is a priority. Like I'm doing some children's books at the moment, and that needs to be in for beginning of September. So that's the priority. And I'll do a few hours if I need to, because obviously I need to get sent off and approved by clients. So basically, anytime I send off things to be approved, I jump on the next thing. Send that off to be approved. So I do juggle it in that way and just write it out. Because I'm doing a lot of character design for pitch work, and then I'm doing like some kids' books and some covers. So just whenever I get like a free moment, I'm like, okay, I'm feeling like doing this right now. But usually it's like I usually focus on one project, beginning of the week, something at the end, and then the weekend will be like commissions or catch up on anything else.
Yeah. And so because of what's going on in the world right now, you're probably not going into the animation studio to work. You're sort of working remotely, I imagine.
Yeah, well, in my studio, I think it was just the production we were in. A lot of people got let go, and I was on that category. But I was actually fine with it because I was doing freelance. So I was like, that is just less work for me, and I can focus on this. But basically, I've heard like from other studios, like it's not going to be the same again. That they're only taking in like maybe directors and producers for meetings right now.
Yeah.
That the animators, riggers, designers, it's all working from home now. And I think there's some people are like really relieved about that because they're like, oh my god, I can balance all this and that. But also, people are missing that studio environment and interaction for sure.
Yeah, and it's an interesting trade-off because there's no reason that they couldn't be doing that work from home. It's no different than what you and I do working on comics. I mean, if you have the internet and you have
Yeah.
the pipeline, you have whatever you need to send the work in, and you would think that potentially that would keep the animation studio overhead down because they wouldn't need the huge space. That this is something that they consider doing in the future. Have they had any discussions about that?
Yeah, it's been. I know there has been. It's quite difficult because not everyone's discipline is as thorough, I would say. Some
Yeah,
people
well, yeah.
really struggle. I know I have. Like, motivation went flat. And I had, like, personal matters I had to deal with in the past few months, and that was distracting me from work. But now it's like, okay, first I need to pay my bills. That's enough motivation for me to
Yeah.
get that done. But if you're kind of detached from it, it's only now how I feel like I can actually create better now and feel good about it. That I know, like talking to some friends who are supervisors and leads, it's been quite difficult to monitor everyone's like what like how they are driven with work and handing
Hmm.
things in on time, and they're having to pull a lot of weight. So there is a lot of issues still because that's when it just comes to down to how loyal are you and getting work in, and can you be disciplined? Can you do this and get this in on time? Because I've had a few dramatic moments here of people just quitting and not getting work done and just going and cutting off. And you're like, are you okay? Like, do we need to talk? But people
Oh
are
yeah,
like,
like they just kind of disappear.
they just detach. And that's the
Yeah.
kind of problem. You can go, but you can be professional about things too. So after everything in my last studio I was in, it was no hard feelings. It was like production I was in some issues was going on anyway, but I was also like, I'm fine working on other stuff that I can invest a bit more in.
Yeah.
Because in that studio, I was just doing posing for a show, and it was fine, but I wasn't as enthusiastic compared to the work I'm doing now. So,
Well, and it's an interesting industry, and I know that you wanted to sort of touch base on the topic of what you actually do in animation. Of course, we're going to talk about comics as well,
mm-hmm.
but let's just jump back a little bit, and then we'll get to the animation, and then just sort of I think probably carry on from there. But as people can tell, you're not a native Canadian. It's a very strong Brooklyn accent you have.
It's an accent, all right. It's pretty wonky.
So you're from Scotland originally.
Yeah.
You went to college after high school, is that correct, in Scotland, and then moved here after that,
Pretty
or?
much. I don't know how it is in Canadian or American schools, but usually in the UK, you can usually after high school, you're 18, and usually you will go to a college to build a portfolio, and there's different kinds, there's so many, and you basically have like a couple of years or so to do that.
Mm-hmm.
But I knew there was only two art schools I wanted to go to, which was Glasgow School of Art, or there was Duncan of Doddinston, which is the East Coast. And I only applied to two art schools. There's only four in Scotland, and everyone usually you apply to four of them because you never know. But I was like, nope, I'm just gonna go to Glasgow. And then it was my art teacher saying, just apply for this other school just in case. And I was pretty stubborn then, and I was like, okay, fine, but I'm going to Glasgow. I didn't get in. That was my first heartbreak. I remember my mum walking me around the block because I was so upset not
Oh,
getting in.
gee.
Oh, it was dramatic. It was like it's such a beautiful school, but and unfortunately now it's caught in fire twice now, so the building is quite damaged. But it's a historical landmark, but it was incredible looking. Um, but it's usually a kind of place for like mature students also. But anyway, I went to Dundee, and that's the Duncan of Drawdenston School, and I did like a general course. I was 18 then, and then I did 3 years of illustration. So I didn't even do animation. I was going to, but then decided to do illustration. And
So
yeah,
with the idea of doing what after, did you sort of know you wanted to get into comics, or was it, did you think you were going to have a career in illustration, or were you just completely open to whatever came your way?
I had no idea. I didn't think it was. I didn't even think I was going to do art because I just felt I wasn't good enough. Like like you're just like
Like we all do at that age.
yeah, you're just
Yeah.
at school and you're just like I was the best of the best, and now I'm with the best of the best, and I'm no one. But I remember illustration was not the best course I took, but I did like a 6 month module, and it was in comics. And it was with two tutors who are still very good friends of mine today. And they ran the course. And that I just thrived in it. And I was like, I love comics. Like, I've always
Yeah.
loved doing it. And people were like, you're not going to have a career in this. And I'm like, I think I will, though. And I just stuck with it. I got the lowest grade in my class after I graduated. Like I barely passed, and then I was like, I didn't even go to graduation. I was just like, I'm buggering off to Canada now. See ya.
Oh, so was it immediately after, I was going to, because that
Yeah,
was going to be my next question, was
yeah,
immediately after college you came to Canada? Was that sort of always in your back
yeah.
pocket? That's what you wanted to do, or?
Pretty much, because I came to Canada. So that was through. I did an exchange program through my mum's school because she was head dean. So there was a little bit of a leeway there. She was like, "You're gonna join these music students, but you're gonna go to different studios." I'm like, great, there's a connection there. So I did that for like 6 weeks, and I that's when I got to meet like the Raid, and went to Nelvana and another like other big animation comic studios, and I just loved it. The second day I was there, I was like, I need to be here, and I got pretty obsessive with it. I think it drove my parents nuts, but I was like, I need to move to Canada, and I would visit and stuff like that quite a lot. And then after I graduated, like we do usually at the end of the year, like for graduation, there's usually like a big exhibition of everyone's work.
Mhm.
And all my family went to that. And I told my mom, I'm not going to graduation, I'm going to go straight to Canada. And I was there for 4 months, and I was waiting to get my visa. And then after I came back in October 2014, I got my visa and moved in February 2015.
So you were out of there.
I was just like, ciao,
So
motherfuckers. Like,
did you have something lined up? So like what was the gap between you coming to Canada and then getting a job at your first animation studio?
I, it was tough because I came in, and with a visa, you can't just jump to a studio unless you're sponsored. So I was doing a lot of freelance. So the first studio I went to was Solace Animation, which is a small boutique studio of just like less than 10 people. But that kept me going for a little bit. And then I did freelance for Smiley Guy Studios, which was a studio I then went back to a few years after. But I already had connections with people because of my visits before. So, and I would just email them consistently, like, hey, I'm coming over. Is there something coming up? I want to learn and do this and that. So I was doing cleanup for a lot of designs, and I was still doing my comic stuff because I had Spirit Leaves out. That was my school project I did. So
Okay.
it all intertwines in a way because I actually brought, so Spirit Leaves I did for school, and I self-published, and I brought like 100 issues with me in my suitcase, and then family members would bring it. It would smuggle it over, and then I would take it to the Silver Snail, and they would sell it for me, and it'd be like a 30 to 70% rate. So
Okay.
yeah, I did kind of maybe something illegal, but it was fine. It wasn't bad.
No. Yeah, I'm sure that customs or whoever would have been the people dealing with that
Yeah,
probably wouldn't have worried too much about it.
yeah.
But so pardon me. So when you did then, because I wanted to talk about your creator own books, like Spirit Leaves. So Spirit Leaves being your first book, and you've done how many issues of that too?
It was 5.
It was 5. Okay.
3 only got released, so that's a whole other maybe interview we can do there.
Well, it's something. It's nice to have something like if you have 5 issues of something. I mean, that's a nice collection that you could
Yeah.
possibly think of down the road. And so was that the component of the comic book curriculum was to create your own book? Is that essentially what it was? So was like one issue? Was that the curriculum or?
The curriculum, it was a complete. We had to do like an 8-page comic, so it was a completely different story. I think. Gosh, I wonder if I have it here. I can't see it right now. But I did find not too long ago the first comic I did. It's nuts. It's so bad that it was just one of those things. It was like a silent comic, so there's no no dialogue or anything. That I just remember like I wasn't confident in school. I was really unwell with a lot of health issues and stuff like that. And then doing this comic in that module was just like I love telling stories.
Mm-hmm.
And my tutors were so supportive. And then when I did Spirit Leaves, I remember my illustration course, the tutors I had then were like, you can't do this. Everyone tries to do a comic and they fail. And I'm like, I really, really want to do this though.
Thanks for the support, teachers.
I know.
That's terrible.
I know. They were. It wasn't good. I didn't actually learn a lot. The only thing I got from it was life drawing, and then those tutors I had, Phil and Chris, they were fantastic, and they were like, "No, you need to do this and try that." Yeah, like my comic was quite big originally, and then they were like, "Cut it by half." And I did Spirit Leaves from like start to finish. It's like 22 pages, and I did from like thumbnails, pencils, inks, coloring, assembling. I did it all in 7 weeks and sent it off to the teachers. I didn't sleep, but I got it done. And my tutors then, the mentors I had, they put like a bit of money in so we could all print it, and it all came out. And it was a big like to the bud to the like tutors.
Yeah, big F you.
Yeah, it was basically like, yeah, fuck you. Look what's selling so well over here. Dicks, that, and they failed me. Well, they didn't fail me, but I got a really low grade. But then when I came.
Whoa. So you put out a 22-page comic and they still gave you a low grade. Was that for the whole course or just for the comic component?
I think probably for everything else, maybe. I don't know, but probably for the comic just to spite me. So
good to know that they're petty at that university. That's terrible.
It was weird. It was really strange, but then I wouldn't have changed it because I had these 2 other guys who were still really good friends of mine today, and they were just great. They were just like, no, we've never had such an enthusiastic student, and we became such good friends, and one of them would usually come and visit me like every spring or so, but obviously this year couldn't. But he would come to Toronto for like business, and we would hang out, and it's just like, it's just so funny. We talk about it all the time, like just the weird treatment and attitude with comics.
So was it just that? Was it just that it wasn't that perhaps you were perhaps a little brash? It's just that you pursued a comic project that they didn't really think was very important.
Yeah, they just thought, well, because it's been attempted before, and comics takes a lot of time. Like a lot of people underestimate it, so they were like, "You can't get this done in time." I'm like, "I can, and I will," and I did, and that's when. And then when I brought it to Canada, that's when I got picked up by Chapter House, and then that's when it got published.
Because I was going to ask you about Chapter House, and so that was your relationship with that publisher who some people will know. Is it still Jay Baruchel that's running it, or?
I don't talk to the guys. That was not a great. It's not a great breakup at the end.
Oh no, that's no good. That's unfortunate. Then being a Canadian publisher.
It's not on Jay. It was with other. It was like other members and founders of the group, and they unfortunately didn't do a lot of favors for a lot of people. And I'm not. I broke out of them like a couple of years ago because it was just not. Again, that's a whole other thing, and I don't want to like make this a negative thing. But
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, fair enough. Yeah.
I think it's more about like you should when something is not working for you and you're kind of being used or payments are not coming in that you need to know when to cut that off. And I got off pretty okay and lucky, but a lot of
Hmm.
friends and peers of mine did not. And they just kind of, it was a shame because Chapter House had a lot of potential. And they were like my first publisher. I was really excited. I was 23 when I moved to Canada and I was published then and I was so excited and it was a nice little thing happening for a while and then it just kind of like disintegrated a bit and
But the most important thing is hopefully you still have all the rights to your
I
project.
yeah
Okay. Well, that at the end of the day, that's because then you can go and do what you want with
yeah
it, right? So, yeah, I
totally
mean, it's interesting working with smaller publishers because certainly when I started back in the early '90s, probably before you were born, um, I uh, I was working with really small publishers, and it was kind of hit or miss
yeah
in terms of professionalism. I was lucky; I did work for some really good ones, Gary Reed of Caliber and Dan Votto, Slave Labor, and so they were really good. So it was nice when you could find a really good professional
yeah
publisher that really supported you. I mean, you weren't making a ton of money, but you had the ability to get your book out there, which is,
hmm
I'm sure, what you were really looking for at the end of the day. I'm sure you weren't thinking, "Oh, I'm going to make $1 million off this project," but
I was amazed. I was like, even just the fact Spirit Leaves was published internationally. I had friends buying it off Forbidden Planet in Glasgow, and my mates would take photos and stuff. And I'm like, this is nuts. Like, I never thought this would happen. It was really cool though. And that was like through animation. It was a friend of mine I worked with in a studio, and he passed it on to one of the founders of Chapter House, and that's when it all kind of connects. So
hmm.
like animation and comics is very it's like brother and sister to me like they play very closely. There's some big differences but they all intertwine in a weird way but it's neat. But that was really cool. And like you mentioned about small publishers, I'm working with one at the moment that have always been great. They do some really good content, like they do like indigenous history. They're called alternative history, and I've been working for them for years on little side projects, and they're some of the best people I work with.
Did you want to give them a shout out? Who that is? Is it a Canadian company?
Yeah, they're called Alternative History.
Oh, they're called Alternative
They're
History.
called
Okay.
that, yeah, and they're Canadian, and they do like a lot of Indigenous history and different content like that. It's really interesting, and I've just always done stuff for them over the years. Like I'm doing two of the kids' books are through them right now that I'm doing.
Okay. And where are they out of? Where are they?
I think they're all in Toronto. I think.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they're really cool guys though. Like I always see them at Fan Expo, and they have such a good way of lining up writers with artists, and it always works really well. And I'm doing like two kind of kids books for Indigenous children going through like maybe some challenging times in life. And I did this before the kind of whole Black Lives Matter thing happened and all these racial issues coming up. I was like, I want to do this. I think it's a really good cause and everything. But obviously, I'm like, I'm not an Indigenous person, so I've just been chatting the ear out of my writers, just being like, tell me everything I need to know and draw to make this authentic and
Well, and I
believable.
was going to ask you that. So you are working with Indigenous writers on these
Yeah,
projects, and
yeah.
how is that sort of reception of working with someone who isn't Indigenous? Creating the visuals for those stories. They really
It's
supportive of you.
But great. Well, they asked me to do it, and that's when I'm like, should I? Like, I know it's kind of a sensitive topic
Mm-hmm.
about having the right creators and people making content. And that's why I was like, are you sure? They were like, yeah, we love your style. And that's when it comes down. It doesn't, in that sense, it doesn't matter who you are. It's more like if you understand what's going on, making believable characters and getting information across, anyone can do it, but I want to be. That's why I'm like, and I'm learning as well. So I'm asking all these questions, and I'm learning a lot and more, and it's quite fascinating, really. And I'm always getting approval and notes from these people, like, tell me if this looks right, the colors, details, everything, and they're pretty thorough with that. So that's really good.
Well, and two, obviously, you have their blessing. They asked you to work on the project, so
Exactly.
it's kind of exciting, though,
It
to
is.
work for an audience that perhaps you wouldn't normally touch. So that's kind of really cool
Yeah, I love that.
that's happening. Yeah, yeah. There's lots of really interesting opportunities here in Canada. Obviously, with the smaller population, we don't have the number of publishers that they do in the United States. But that sounds like a really kind of cool thing that came along and you've been able to jump on. So I wanted to talk a bit about what got you to drawing. So probably early 2000 to mid 2000 was probably pretty pivotal years for you in terms of what you were taking in, what you were reading, what you were watching, and I'm sure you were getting a lot of the same programs that were coming out of North America and Scotland. I mean, it's not another planet. So, what were you consuming at that time that got you to I want to be an artist? Like I love drawing. What was working its way into your work at that time?
It's funny because some people think we still live in the Stone Age. I've still had just to add on, people think we're another planet. I've had people ask me if Scotland is a city. It's pretty bad, and I'm just like, what? I'm like,
Wow.
what? And some people, I've been told, oh, please excuse that. Some people don't know outside of North America. I'm like, but anyway, I've given them kind of a sore lesson in that. But anyway, it was just I just remembered something there. But I think with drawing, I've always drawn. The classic case for every artist, I've always drawn. But that thing that kind of like we commented on, like my accent, I didn't start talking until I was 5, like because I had like processing challenges as a kid, so information came in but was processed much slower. So me responding and articulating language and everything was it was quite challenging. Like my parents were just like, why won't she say anything? Because I could understand and I just point and make noises and gesture everything. And eventually I did start talking, but it was a huge challenge. It was like learning English as a second language, even though it should be my first. But drawing, I just could do, and my parents were both very like they were. My dad was a professor in Scottish literature, and my mom was like she did media talks and film study and everything. So both rich in art and like the history and mediums and everything. So my parents were always supportive in me pursuing drawing. And I think that is quite lucky because my
Yeah.
dad, he would record like one of the Ghibli movies, Laputa, Castle in the Sky. For some reason, it was playing on BBC early in the morning, and my dad found it in the paper, and just he used to record movies and shows for me all the time. So there'd be like all these tapes of just all these mashups of movies. So it'd be like The Last Unicorn, Flight of Dragons, Laputa, and like the Flying Swan Castle, which is some crazy Russian movie. And it was just all this content. So it was so mixed, and my that was something my dad was very he loved collecting different kind of movies and content for us to watch and books as well. So I also read like Tintin a lot. And obviously when I got older I got into manga, and I was hooked on that for a couple of years, and then kind of like expanded from there.
Was it Dragon Ball?
No, what was it? Like I already had Ghibli, so I already had like Princess Mononoke. I remember
Yeah.
Spirited Away, and that was good because Spirited Away came out in like the 2000s, and I remember even saying to my parents like, I really want to see this, and they did like a small screening of it in Glasgow, and we went to see it, and both my parents loved it. They were like, "Oh my
Oh
god,
wow.
beautiful!"
Yeah.
My parents, my dad especially was very open to stuff. Like well, we used to watch SpongeBob SquarePants like all the time. He was so into cartoons, and so he was always very supportive and took me to like all the museums like Kelvin Grove in Glasgow and then the Edinburgh Art Museums, and he was really into art history, and I got so into it too. So I was very rich in the arts then, but obviously with Scottish painters and illustrators. So that was pretty neat. And yeah, with movies as well, we watch a lot of European movies also. So it was like a lot of interesting mix that's maybe different from what people maybe like here. Like
Hmm.
there's just some titles and differences I think that are really cool. And then obviously you have oh what's the I'm blocking on the name right now that does Judge Dredd, the publisher in
2000 AD.
yeah. Oh my god,
Yeah.
that's so bad. I totally forgot that. I was like, it's AD something year. Yeah, 2000 AD has a lot of amazing content, and then you have like the Beano with
Yep.
Dennis the Menace and the Bruins.
Yep.
Totally addicted to the Bruins.
And our Wooly.
Willie is fab. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And it's funny because same artist,
Yes.
incredible cartoonist, and very, very few people know him over here. So my grandpa was actually from Scotland. Well, I mean, he's dead. I mean, he still is from Scotland, but
Yeah.
dying doesn't make you not be from a place. But so I was introduced to Beano and Orwooly and the Bruins, and very happily so. I actually have a bunch on my shelf,
Great.
and it's beautiful cartooning, and no one over here knows who he is, and just
Yeah.
absolutely prolific, like just.
Oh, yeah.
So were those newspaper strips originally? Did those
They were.
appear? They
And
were. Okay, I
and it's
wondered. Yeah.
amazing because you have these full trades of all these comics. Like they're so consistent. Like the Bruins and or Willie, that's DC Thompson,
Yeah.
and they're the ones publishing all that. I was actually after graduating school, I was supposed to be doing a gig with them, but it didn't line up, and I had moved to Canada. Then I was so gutted at the time because I was so excited to do it, and I had done designs and everything, and I'm like, oh my god, I'm gonna be doing DC Thompson, which is so exciting in the UK, but it just didn't work out.
No, that's unfortunate.
That's another thing. It's like there has been so many failures along the way with the successes. Like I think it's
Oh, of course.
double or
Yeah.
triple the failures.
Yeah.
So I can talk at the time I used to be devastated. Now I'm just like, oh, this happened, but it didn't line up, and that's what it is, you know? That that's something as a creative you do get pretty used to is just rejection or denial or just things not it just doesn't
Well,
work out.
and
You
as
know?
you get older too, you actually get better at sniffing out the ones that probably aren't going to happen. There we go. That probably aren't
so
going to
good.
happen. Look at that.
Dewey Bray. It's
So great.
good. I love Oh Willie. And in Dundee, the town I went to for school, there's a huge oh shit, what's his name? I'm just gonna look him up quickly. Because I do not want to butcher the name, but you can probably find it online. Um, it's pretty. Oh, it's Desperate Dan.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
He's the big barrel-chested.
Barrel-chested guy. Yeah.
Yeah.
And he wears like a Mountie hat of all
Yes,
things.
and he eats meat pies and electric
Yeah.
pies with horns in them. And there's a huge, really impressive like statue of him just walking in the middle of town. And
I've
it's,
seen
like,
that online.
long. It's
Yeah.
great. It's
Yeah.
like it's huge too. It's like life size. It's amazing. It's really cool. There's a lot of cool stuff in that town. But
Well,
that's,
and
yeah.
that's kind of the cool stuff that can filter in your work, inspire you, that a lot of people don't necessarily know about. We have a bit of a history of comics in Canada, but not nearly as deep as even like Scotland with these books. You can look to Captain Canuck probably being the most famous Canadian invention in terms of characters. There would have been certainly great cartoonists, newspaper cartoonists, and political cartoonists. There he is.
Uh-huh.
And but yeah, I mean, it's like you find that stuff that
Yeah, that's it.
the Cam's all over this. This is great.
Just can't
Look
get
at
a
that.
good image
Cam
of
is
that
like a visual ninja collecting everything.
That's right. That's right.
But
Well,
that's the thing with Scottish comics, especially like DC Thompson. What's prolific about Dundee is that that's where DC Thompson is based at. So it's very rich in its comics scene there. But obviously, I want to add. Obviously, it's when I was growing up and I was with my dad at the Newsagents, which is a corner store for people that don't know. So I was at the Newsagents with my dad, and I pick up this X-Men book, and it's by Frank Quietly, and I'm like maybe
I
8.
was just about to say
This is it.
but I'm gonna even say because
Yeah.
Frank is British, correct?
He's Scottish. He's from
He is
Glasgow.
Scottish. Okay, there's no way. Cam, can you bring out that picture of Desperate Dan again?
Yep.
There's no way that Frank Quietly didn't read Desperate Dan. You can look at that and you can see Frank Quietly, pulling from that.
Yeah, you can like I'm looking at some of his work in this X-Men book, and it's like there's a lot of flesh in the clothing. It's very rounded.
Yeah.
And the silhouettes, especially, like it's very obvious. But yeah, like obviously Vinny, his work is he's still one of the top artists. I met him a few times. Big crush on him when I was younger.
Oh yeah. Well, he's
he's
kind of a cool smooth guy, isn't he?
Cool, and he's so sweet.
Yeah.
He's very good looking, and you're just like, I don't know what to do. And it was very cute when I did release Spirit Leaves when I self-published. I know Dave Gibbings as well, and I got those guys to do like a quote for me. So I had in the first original releases I did, I had Frank Quietly and Dave Gibbings on each bottom of the page, and I was like, "Oh, this is so cool!"
That's pretty awesome.
Oh,
I'm just gonna answer a question here with like bootlegging as a habit. I'm talking about actually Canadian, not artists. There's a gazillion Canadian artists. I'm talking about like characters that they created, like and published in Canada. Sort of specifically what I was talking about, but yeah. So and it must have been impossible to not have Scottish history and Scottish folklore filter its way into your work as well.
Yeah, I think that adds a bit of like depth to it. I know the one book I'm still working on, like, is Wildflowers. That's something I'm still developing. It's an idea I've had for years, and I did like a kind of preview book of it last year for TCAF, and it was responded incredibly well. And there's just details of like all the characters' names is Scots Gaelic, and there's meaning behind that. And I think there's like mannerisms and just I know the book like when I'm developing it, it's kind of like an alternative world in what we live in, but there is going to be a version of Scotland that the characters I have will eventually go to, and there is a lot of folklore there, like the hometown I'm from, like is the home place of Robert Burns, which is very famous poet.
Yes.
And there's Tam O'Shanter. That's a very very famous story, and I we had the church and the bridge there. So there's so much rich content in history, and like my dad, professor of Scottish literature, taught me a lot of different stories and books to read, and there's definitely an influence of like female Scottish writers I've read, and yeah, and it's inevitable. I think it's got to seep through. But I'd like to think it's authentic. Like I don't sound Scottish, but I have the Scottish life experience of being there, obviously, and I'm proud to be Scottish. But I don't want to live there. It's kind of crappy, to be honest.
No, is it? So was the move to
Yeah.
Canada wasn't just an opportunity situation for you? It was more than that. Then
It was a bit more. I think there was mostly opportunity. Mostly because everything I wanted to do, I just couldn't do it in Scotland. The economy wasn't good. The arts, unless you're doing gaming, it just wasn't like this. Like the Wasp studio is in Glasgow, and that's where Frank Quietly is. But it's just not the same compared to Canada. It's just not. It's very different, and the opportunities and consistency of work. It's just not great, and the weather's shit all the time.
Well, there
It
is that.
Scotland would be paradise if it just didn't have shitty weather all year round. Like it is cold, it is wet. I am freezing over there. Like the winters here are bad, but I'm more cold in Scotland.
Well, you do have the North Sea right there,
Yeah.
just
Oh,
hammering you. So
it's a brisk wind over there, and it
yes,
chills your bones, and you're just like, oh shit. And there's no like proper like insulation at homes. You're just you're buggered. I know I am. I'm just
it's
like,
interesting. It's interesting because I think that uh, North Americans have a tendency to sort of romanticize a lot of Europe just because of the history and well, it's how beautiful it is over there. And one of my close friends is from England, and it's the same thing. He lives in Canada, and he's like, I hated living there. It's like, what are you talking about? He's like, no. Mm.
it gets old real fast. Like I love visiting home. Like I went last year and I went to see my dad and my family obviously, and it's beautiful, but it's pretty boring as well. Like my hometown air is a shithole. Like it's full of junkies and retired folk, and I don't know how I was even brought up there. I feel like such an alien when I go home up
Is it
there.
like still game?
Worse than, well, I shouldn't say worse than still game, but it's very much like still game. Yeah, you've got like the Twad Dogs bar, you've got like an old cinema, and you've got like the beach, and there's litter everywhere. It's so bad, and like I have good friends of mine that all like moved out now, but we meet up, and there was one time we were there, and we were just like, how did we survive here? Like, how did we get out? And it was like, it was different when we were growing up. It was nicer then, I guess. But
Yeah.
it's
Well, and it's
so,
also all you knew. I mean, when you're small, when you're
yeah,
younger, your world is just sort of
yeah.
home.
And there
So it's
was
kind of all you
nature.
knew. Oh, what's that?
There was nature too, and I do miss that a lot. Is
Yeah.
we were so close to like the hills and lakes and everything, so we could just venture off and go to the woods and bugger for a few like hours and everything, and then come back. Like it was that I do miss. Like I do miss the greenery from home.
Yeah, well, and we do get that out here. We're fortunate where we are. We have the Rockies very
Uh,
close. On a clear day, we can see them.
that's
And
nice.
my partner, she's a climber, so she's out in the mountains quite a bit. And
Nice.
I mean, it is we do get that aspect
Mhm.
of it. But Toronto's, I mean, it's a huge center, right? So you have to work a little bit
It
harder
is.
for it.
There's some greenery. Like I've started running again, and I love it. And I run by the water, and it is very beautiful. Like I do love living in the city. Like growing up like close to Glasgow, which is a big city town. Like it's a big city. It's not the capital, but it's big, and there's a lot of greenery there and everything. And then coming to Toronto, I like Toronto a lot. It's very there's a lot to offer here, and there's a lot of good people there. And there is some parks and spots there. Like I've scouted them out over the years because I'm like, I need some green in my life. I don't like all the concrete.
Well, let's talk a bit about what you're working on now and how you work. And so you are sort of at a place where digital is obviously a huge component
Yeah.
in how you work. And was that sort of always there for you? Like when you hit university, were you still working traditionally, or blending it all, or like how does it work for you? I mean, are they just sort of the same for you? You can bounce back and forth, or
I used to draw a lot more traditionally back then. Like at college, I was so drawing. Like I did spirit leaves all traditionally. So, and I do miss that. Obviously, digital is just so quick and easy and versatile. Like, especially in animation work, you're just having to churn out so much work.
Mhm.
And when I do my work, especially digitally, I really try not to over render. I think that's a big thing now that I find with some North American comics is everything gets digitized too much. Like, there's a lot of filters and it's a bit overwhelming my brain. Like I think when it comes to digital for me, I keep it pretty basic. Like I just try to like have a nice brush tool that looks authentic, and then just keep flat colors more and more. Like I feel I'm doing less fancier work now because I'm like just trying to pull back from that because I don't want it to look. I think digital suits my style, and especially when I was drawing traditionally and scan things and coloring, I felt the coloring from Photoshop just suited my line work so well.
Hmm.
But back at college, I was definitely doing more traditional, but I could bounce back and forth. And I find like with digital, it has benefited me in some realms of like just confidence, and like I can just churn away and practice over and over. And again, with the coloring, it just adds to it a bit more. But I would like to do more traditional. I think it's just the setup. I need to just get myself a better one. And but I am planning to do a bit more traditional work. Like that's what's been nice is with Inky Knuckles is that I'm doing commissions, which I'm still working on. I know I've been very slow with that, but I'm still working on those. That it's a nice little breather from the tradition, like the digital stuff. And I'm like,
Yeah.
that's what I do on the weekends. I will push this back, like my Cintiq, and then just have paper and just. I feel like I approach it kind of differently now. So that's been kind of neat, but I just need to get more confident again with the inking again.
And so when you approach one versus the other, is it the same thought process for you? Are you solving problems the same way? Or, when you approach something digitally, like this piece that Cam has up now, because you're so well versed in it, is it sort of easier for you to tackle versus when you're working traditionally and maybe it being a little less forgiving as a result?
Yeah, traditionally is more challenging, but I find some of my best work, like I do all my thumbnails traditionally. I have to have paper, like when I'm doing wildflowers, I'm thumbnailing everything by ink. And I feel like my thought process, it's way more solid and direct. Like if I'm doing stuff digitally, I'm not being as thoughtful. But when I'm doing thumbnails on paper, I'm like it's very direct and flows way more consistently. And then when I'm doing like I find like I will do like a sketch digitally, and then I'll just have it up on the screen, and then I'll draw it traditionally, and it will take a bit of time to get better at that again, but I like having something there because I was always doing that as a kid, like looking at something at a screen and drawing from the screen. So I've kind of just been doing that. So I'll have something there, draw it out, but then I'll change it traditionally if I think it doesn't translate as well. So it's been quite challenging to go back to traditional again, that I try to keep it consistent. Like I really just try to like go back and forth. The past few months I've been a bit less active in drawing, that I feel like I'm starting to get back into it again. But yeah, it's always just I think it's important to do both. I don't think anyone who's like, oh, digital is kind of cheating. I'm like, it's totally not. Like
No, no.
I'm totally approaching this the same way as I would traditionally, but there are just some different components that you've kind of taken in on mind.
Yeah.
Like
Well, I mean,
traditionally, it's way more
it's
thoughtful.
yeah. I mean, it's like any other tool. I mean, you can't
Hmm.
hand a Cintiq to a layman and expect that they're going to create something magical. I mean,
No.
they would probably wouldn't even know how to turn it on. So,
Yeah.
I
Right
I
here.
mean, it's just another expression and
And
another,
then,
like I said, like another tool in your tool chest. And so let's talk about this image specifically, which is from Wallflowers. So is this the book that you're working on right now?
yeah, like I've been on hold with it, but over lockdown, I have had a bit of a breakthrough with the plot, and it's got to have more Scottish influence in it. I'm like, this works, and that was really neat. But yeah, this main character that everybody asks the name of is Eoth, which means blue flame in Gaelic, in Scots Gaelic. Because everyone was reading this book kind of being like, how the hell do you say this name? But it's a like basically it's a very versatile name for both genders, but that's my main character, and she's quite a bright young woman, and she's a photographer, and she finds out something that she shouldn't about a student, and her and her sisters have to go on the run, basically.
So is it a bit of a thriller, a bit of a crime comic? Is there
Yeah,
fantastical elements or?
I can't say too much on that. Well, I've already revealed something anyway.
Damn it!
Might be. I'm still kind of figuring that out, but mostly it's kind of like I take the influence of like Stand By Me, like Kids on the Go, but that is a bit of a crime thriller component to it. And it's like these three young women, like Edith is the oldest, and she's about 18, 19, and she's just kind of wired differently, and she's kind of being hunted down by someone because she's found out too much, and she had to protect her younger sisters who join her on this journey. And it's just them surviving and trying not to be caught, and then exposing more details. And there's got to be some very personal, like, chapters that are very close to me that I want to like address in this book. But then there'll be how these characters deal with it will be very different. So it'll be very interesting how I do develop it, because when you don't want your characters to respond how you would, trying to make them respond how other people would, and it's like having a split personality disorder or something. Or like, so I wouldn't do that, but they will do that. How do they resolve from that? And it's very interesting.
Well, I'm glad that you're tackling writing as well. I always hold that, and obviously there's absolutely nothing wrong with working with writers. I sort of go back and forth with that, but there's something really singular and special about comic creating when you're doing everything yourself, even if it's just a black and white comic, or writing and
Yeah.
drawing a book, because it is just your voice. There's something kind of really unique about that, and so it's exciting to me that you're tackling that. And so, what is your writing process for this? Then, are you planning to? Are you sort of writing chunks and drawing it as you move along, or are you working on? You want to know the ending, and so you're figuring out the whole plot. What's how's that looking?
I pretty much have like at least up to 4, 5 volumes of this figured out. Um, I don't know the end. I think I have an ending, but I'm trying to think of variations of it, because this series came from a dream I had about this girl, and she was a lot younger. And then developing it, I was like, okay, she needs to be older, because it's going to be very dark, this book. And there's just content there that I think will be, very sensitive. But then I want to address those, and so I've been kind of trying to figure that out as well. It's like, how far can I push this without being just, grotesque or disturbing? It needs to have meaning. But yeah, how I write it, I'm not a good writer. Like, you've seen me how I message you. I'm horrific at it. I can't spell for shit.
Well,
But
no, none of us can. Don't let that
oh,
hold you back.
it
None of
doesn't
us
hold
can
me
spell.
back. It's
I mean, I
just,
just mean in terms of thinking about your ability to write. I mean, that's why
I
spell
break
check
it
exists.
down in like scenes. I'm visual first. I will kind of act it all out first. So I'm blocking out the actions and the quiet moments and everything, and then I fill it in with the text after. So everything is directed by the actual direction of characters and gesturals and action, and then I just kind of know what to fill in with the after. So it's all about the action. Like, I feel like you need to be able to understand without words. So I kind of go on that base, and then after that, that's when I'll be like, okay, what are they actually going to be saying here? What's the information? Unless it's like something very specific, but usually it's like thumbnailing the action and sequences first, and then it's the dialogue after.
Interesting, because I'm the complete opposite. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I'm at a point now where I write, and I think a lot of this came from writing screenplays, which I've written a handful of. But I will just basically write conversations. So I'll just write dialogue in very minimal description. Only I'll throw it in just so I remember. But basically, I just write the conversations. I give myself. I love conflict. Like, everything has to have conflict. So I create the scenario, the characters, what's the conflict, and then I just start writing dialogue and I edit after. I don't even in my head it's sort of visually taking shape as I go, but that's always comes after. That's just words on paper for me. So yeah, it's interesting how people work, and neither is right and neither is wrong. I'm not.
I know.
Yeah, it's because I know some writers who are just writers who actually write by laying out a page and drawing the panels on the page, and just in this panel this happens, in this panel, and that's the way they have to write. They are sort of visualizing it before they go and write the dialogue. So
It's
To
so
that
interesting.
point, sorry guys, just to interject there quickly. I don't know if you guys saw Rom V is working on Blue and Green with Anand right now.
yeah.
And it was Anand that actually posted that today. Rom had actually given him
Oh,
a
was
thumbs
that
up.
his? Oh, that's interesting. Okay, I did see that. I thought that was Anand's his own rough. I'm lazy and didn't read the description, I guess. But
Yeah. And Rom's got some artistic chops for sure. I think he's kind of an artist first, possibly.
mhm.
So he's got some chops there. But yeah, no, just to that point, what you're talking about.
Well, and that's the beauty of comics, because there really is no wrong way to make them.
There isn't. I think I would love to explore I would like to put writing first, and I think I need to do that for this series I'm working on, because there's got to be some heavy dialogue and exchanges. But I do love like the quiet moments in comics and movies where it's just action and just those moments you get. So I do prioritize that a lot more. But I'm trying to tackle with this a bit differently because I have some visuals in mind. But I think with those chapters, I want to put in that dialogue in first, because that might shift my perspective and make it better. So I
It's
like to
nice
split
to
that down
Yeah,
too.
it's nice to go back and forth,
It is,
and
yeah.
like one will inform the other, and then the other will inform the visuals, and
Yeah.
quite often I'll write all this dialogue, and then when I do layouts for things, I can start deleting dialogue because I'm showing it visually. It doesn't need to
Yeah.
be said. So yeah, like going back and talking about the specialness of comics, and I think that that's what draws a lot of creative people to it, and thinking of yourself as a storyteller. I think that's why it's a medium that a lot of storytellers find their way to, and comics really can be about anything, which is wonderful. And you don't need to be the most amazing artist in the world. I've been at this for nearly 30 years, and there's people half my age that, draw circles around me. And I'm fine with that. But it's just what you can bring to the medium that is uniquely your own is, I think, what creators really want to do at the end of the day. And looking at your work, um, like going back through some of those images, like I think that you are really great at capturing emotion in your characters. There was that piece that Cam posted earlier of
Oh,
that
I
woman
saw
that's
that.
sort of in anguish, and
Yeah.
it's beautiful. Like how you tackled everything about that piece is amazing.
Thank you.
Stripping away the sort of the heavy line art, except for there it is,
Mhm.
except for her face. Like everything works to make that, works together to make that emotion felt by whoever's looking at it. There's no way that you can look at that and not feel her pain.
I appreciate that. I'm all about the anguish, guys. I'm all about that. But yeah, this was just like, because I over lockdown I've been really struggling with my style. That's why I've not really been drawing, and I've just been like, I can't do this. I'm just not liking what I'm doing, and that's kind of been on the comfort of animation and just churning out stuff that's pretty disposable, to be honest. So I just had to go back, and with this, like, these are just studies I'm doing for myself. I'm just trying to practice coloring, and I like drawing realistically too. Like, I'm very stylized in what I usually do, but I also like this style too. But it's kind of like having enough information in it. And yeah, when I was coloring this, I just didn't want to lose like that black line, like that
Mhm.
that's under like her, like in the other side of her cheek.
Yeah, her chin and on her neck.
Yeah, I just because I was like, oh, maybe I should color that in, like because everything else is like pigmented. But I was like, I like it. It's like just a good lean in there, and yeah, it was responded really well. I was happy because this is one of my favorite movies too. Like it really spoke to me. As
What's it from?
it's Midsummer. It's
Okay.
Ari Aster. He did Hereditary as well. He's a great director, like young director, but he's already done 2 movies, and I adore them because they're like the subtle horrors. Like me and Cam have like rambled on about horror movies, and we're just
Yes,
like,
we have.
yeah, like this movie is just. I love it. Like it's just a very different feel, and this character, she goes through a lot of shit. But this scene, I don't know. Like I without sounding dramatic, I've been through some challenges and just this. I think it's a very, it's a moment of release for her.
Hmm.
So I just wanted to draw it. I just want to push myself more with like expressions and coloring. And this wasn't for anyone, which is nice. I love doing work that's not for anyone, but just for me. It's not going to be published. It's not for any promotional stuff. It's just for me, and I love doing that because that's what I did as a kid. So this stuff I'm doing, I'm just like these series. I'm just like just having fun with it. Like
Well, and it's good tackling sort of the expressiveness of what you bring in to your work. That's something that I've always really appreciated, enjoyed with what you're doing is, and perhaps it is the animation um, background that you have in terms of making characters move. Even though I mean you work in the design department, but you're getting all that information and yeah, I mean, it feels very much like that your two worlds are working together for sure.
I feel it intertwines for sure.
Yeah.
Animation, I feel like all ends have been benefiting for each other. Like there's things I was hired in animation because I have an illustrative background, and that's through comics. But then with comics, my stuff's expressive, so it all translates quite nicely. Like I want to do more illustrative stuff, so I've been trying to do a bit more of that. But I feel like I've gained such benefits from both ends, so I feel that's really neat. It all
Yeah,
translates ways.
and that's the beauty of storytelling in any medium because coming from movies when I was doing movies for a while, and actually I brought a lot of that into comics when I came back to it and found it extremely helpful, and that there was a visual language that was translatable from medium to medium. So yeah, I mean, I think music is the same. I think you can get a lot from
Everything.
music that you can inform in your art. I mean, I think most cartoonists are big music fans. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and so and it's great because you can do something really subtle with colors, but then obviously you're working with just gray tones and still creating that kind of same sense of wonder and great cartooning, but using gray tones. So was this just the same thing where you just is this from something or is this just something
It's
for
just for
yourself again?
fun. Yeah, it
Yeah.
was from one of my sketchbooks I did, and that was like I always do one for Fan Expo every year. Obviously, I haven't done one this year, but that was just something I was like, again, it's just challenging myself. Like I think this one's from Volume 2, and I'm just like, I hate drawing backgrounds, but I do comics, so I'm like, I gotta get used to liking them. And I actually find backgrounds is such a great extension of characterization. Like I love drawing just like abandoned spots or wilderness, and you can hide so much information in there and how your character interacts in that. I think if anyone struggles with that, it's like see it as an extension of like, you see some movies, and that's just when like the influence from that comes in. You're just like there's a beautiful shot of something and nothing is happening, but it's just
Hmm.
still. But it just sets everything right, and I love drawing moments like that, and I want to do that a bit more. Like I want to try and just do a bit more like background studies and just having a character not a prime focus but embedded in the moment. Like I just love drawing moments like that because there's so much that you can play with that. And I think it's just having, like, I hated drawing backgrounds. I'm not good at buildings and anything straight. I'm like, I want to try to add like a curve to it, but
I haven't
yeah.
used a ruler in anything I've
Oh
drawn in
god,
decades.
I hate it. I'm just drawing buildings. I'm like, no, I don't want to draw those. But then
It's
it's
funny
like,
because I actually love it. It's people
yeah.
make fun of me because I'm the brick guy. Like I'll draw a million bricks on a building.
Oh, well, your bricks do look pretty cool. Like it's still like an organic feel to it. I think it's just like I'm still feel like so far behind and just trying to find my voice. But I feel like with the animation stuff, I love the more simple linear stuff, and then just having my very organic characters in a setting. I think that's my thing. So I'm gonna just work from that and see. But I'm still like figuring shit out all the time.
Well, so I don't know if I should say this to you or not, but just so you know, that never goes away. If you and I think that you will, if you continue to challenge yourself,
Hmm.
like I said, I'm 48 and I'm still trying to figure stuff out. I was trying to figure out stuff today on this commission. It never goes away, and that's good, because you are challenging yourself. You're never gonna hit. And there are artists that do that sort of said, I'm cool at this level. I don't need to grow anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds terrible to me, but works for them.
I think that's
So
what I
what
do.
I'm
Like,
saying is don't beat yourself up is what I'm saying.
I
Embrace
am
it.
the
Embrace it.
queen of beating myself up, though. Like, I love it. No, but that's the thing. I have such good, like, I am very lucky in the industry that I know some really good people, and a lot of the people I've admired for years have become very good friends of mine. So I've been very lucky in that case, but it's always so comforting and also very admirable is that a lot of my friends, like Carrie Nord and Dan Panosian and all that, I'm just like, they're like, always trying to get better, always trying to strive for more. I'm like, yeah, that never goes away. And I do
Yeah.
love that. It's just this sense of keep going. And I'm seeing the stuff, like even that Midsummer piece, I didn't think I could draw like that. And then I was really pushing some different things and but also doing in factors of things that I do enjoy doing. And it came out pretty well. And I was
Yeah.
like, oh shit, I can do this. I just gotta get my head out of the sad gutter and just keep producing content. And the funk always happens, but I always find when the funk does happen, you come out of it better every time.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly think that, and I've talked to a few people about it, when that starts to happen, when art starts to become frustrating, it's because you're about to level up. And it is you're hitting a point where you're no longer satisfied with what you're doing at the moment and you
Yeah,
need more. And so you're
exactly.
even if you're subconsciously pushing yourself and so that doubt comes in, but you push through it and you usually do, you find that next gear, and finding that next gear is awesome. Because
It's
you're like,
so
oh,
good.
I didn't know
It's
I could do that.
it's like after you've done like a really concentrated fought or something, and you're released it after, and you're just like, oh, I'm not swollen no more. I can pursue this. That's the only kind of release factor I can compare it to. You've been holding in this gas, and you're just like, oh,
And then you get out and the elevator doors close and you wave at the
oh.
people in there.
You're like, I can do my day on it. And yeah, and you're like, sorry, folks, that's the old me. And then you just produce all this new stuff, and it's all shifting. I don't know where the thought thing came from. That's something like my dad would say, and I'm just like, God, that's so lame.
Well, now it's something you've said, and it's going to be forever remembered on the internet.
Yay! Another regret.
So let's just talk about sort of what is your approach now, and I know that things have been difficult in terms of even with COVID and talking to different creators. People are sort of finding waves of creativity where they'll find a pocket of a few days where all of a sudden they'll go gangbusters and get a lot done, and then it's like hitting a wall. And I call it the invisible stress because sort of everybody is feeling it right now, whether we think we are or not. And so how do you push yourself right now to be creative? You just muscle memory, you just sit down. I mean, that's how it works for me. I just sit down and I start working.
Kind of. It was like, so it was it was difficult because like COVID happened, and already like I have the anniversary of my partner's passing, and then my dad had passed away, which was something which was not a surprise. And I wasn't like I didn't stop working because my dad had passed. I think it was just it was such a long window of waiting and not knowing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think afterwards, when it did happen, like he died, he passed away peacefully, and it's been a very big relief for my whole family and I. That I was exhausted after, and I just couldn't even work. I couldn't concentrate, and it wasn't me like grieving. I was just like, I can't even focus right now. Like I'm like COVID has been hard enough, but I'm kind of used to like my routine now, working from home. I am seeing more people again, which is nice. That I think with all those life challenges, and I couldn't go back home to Scotland to see him and all that, so that was difficult. That it was just
Yeah.
like it is what it is. But it's funny though because I did reminisce about things I did do with him, and I started to run again, which was something I did with him, and that's been such a big thing that has really helped clear my head. Like if I'm frustrated at drawing, I actually get excited like a dog, knowing that I'm about to go run. I'm like, my adrenaline builds up, and I'm like, I'm going out, okay. And I get out, and I run for like 40 minutes or so, and I come back, and I feel so much better. So I actually feel like walking out and just getting out and everything, and that has been really helping me just to clear my head, not just
Mm-hmm.
like family losses and everything, but just when you're sitting there and you're just angry at your desk, I'm like, this does nothing. So I'm literally just gonna walk away from it, and that's what I do. I literally run away from all my problems and come back, and they're less daunting.
Yes.
That's
Well,
how
it's
I treat it.
Well, it's good, and we all have our ways of circumventing whatever it is that's getting in our way of being creative. And
Oh yeah.
as long as it's healthy, then it's all good. And so it's nice that you're able to, because I saw on Instagram that you had started running and that you were feeling really good about that. And
Yeah.
running used to 35 pounds ago used to be a big part of my life. I
Hmm.
was crazy about it. Like
Oh
I'd
yeah.
run, I'd run 120K a week,
Hmm.
and but then I started having some weird heart problems, so it went away. So it was like, oh, okay, what's the new thing that I can do? And but just sort of, yeah, finding that piece that in that roar in your ear,
Yeah.
so that you can just sit down and do the best work that you can do. It's not always the easiest thing.
It's not like I've always like I was when I was younger in college. I was very unwell because I did too much workouts and was very like I'm already a skinny person, and but I was very scrawny then. But now I'm doing it again, and my body just feels stronger, and I just feel so much better. Like yeah, it's nice to look and look good and everything, but it's more just like how it's clearing my head.
Mm-hmm.
And I think especially after Dad's passing, I feel a lot closer to running now because that's something he did. So there's a weird comfort in that. That it is just like I'm just out now. I'm not thinking about anything. I'm just out doing it, and it's been such nice weather now. And I think that is so important as creatives to be active and stay fit. Like before, I felt like back in January, I felt like a body of like a 60-year-old, and now I feel like yeah, I'm more like my age now. This is how my body should be. Instead of being 60, I'm like late 20s now, and I'm like this. This is what it should feel like. But it's
So
just yeah,
I wanted to ask you about, because you're 28.
yeah.
So, what is the comic industry? And I mean, it isn't even so much about the comic industry now because there's so many avenues for creators to get their work out there without necessarily having to rely on a publisher and being featured in Diamond. Um, And I talked to Matt Lesniewski recently. We actually Skyped Cam. And and he's 27, and so talking to him was really interesting too, and getting his perspective on sort of finding your place in the medium of comics and finding an audience. Is working with a publisher the end goal, or just directly to finding fans? Is that the way you want to go? How's it sort of working for you?
That's always been like a bit of like that a bit of a maze when I first came here, because I wanted to. My goal was to be like with Marvel or work on Spider Gwen. Don't get me wrong; if that was offered to me, I would do it. But even then, if this was maybe last year talking about it, I would have been like, yeah, I would have totally. That's the goal I want to have. But now it's really shifted. I want to make my own stories, and I like on Instagram, like the fan base has been growing, and it's still a shock to me because I'm nobody. And then, but over the years, it's growing, and it's just how people like have responded to my work with either like life events and how I respond to that through artwork, or just what I draw and who I draw. It's being like the goals always shift all the time. That's why like I do like my animation and my comics gig, like balancing that out. I'd like to do more comic stuff, and that's happening now. Like, but I like I like being versatile and being able to dip my toes in different things, because it just opens up really different opportunities there that I thought I would never either get to do, or something I think, oh, I can't do that, but I can. But I think I really like a lot of my work now, and clients come through my Instagram. Like they just say, "Oh, I found your work," or someone mentioned you. I will want you to work on this. I'm like, okay, great. So I feel like when I'm on Instagram, I try to just obviously just post trend things happening, but also my own stuff, and how people respond to that is really good. So it's having a voice there, and people want me for a style. And again, if something lined up at DC or Marvel and it was good and it felt authentic, then yes. But that's not the goal of mine. My goal is to make wildflowers and to make a product out of that eventually. So I have like some big goals for that I would like to get done. And it's a story. I want to just tell my own stories. I love having control over everything.
Mm-hmm.
So I think with wildflowers, there's just so much I could have a lot of fun with, and I could be really authentic. And there's some topics I just want to explore in that I don't maybe see in other books right now.
Is it something you would consider kickstarting or
Oh, totally.
Indiegogo? Is that, I always get that one wrong.
Oh, it's fine. Like I did Indiegogo for the first.
It is Indiegogo. Okay.
Yeah, I did that one, and it was really good. Like it's amazing that like you're better off being like, guys, I want to just do this. I'll have a set number. This is the extra stuff you can get. Everyone is so supportive. It's amazing.
Yeah,
Like,
it's real. It's people are finding a lot of success. It kind of was really popular, and then it sort of went away, and it's finding a resurgence. And I think that I think we're keeping Cam up. That's okay. I yawned about 10 minutes ago. I think that when the situation hit and Diamond did what it did, really kind of opened a lot of creators' eyes, in that it just looked like the system that a lot of us are working in is actually quite fragile, and that perhaps there's some alternatives where we're a little more in control of every avenue, and because of social media, that we can directly market to the people who enjoy our work. And either they're supporting creators through Patreon. Matt Allison just started a Patreon, with potentially the idea of, I don't know if he's going to self-publish or what he's going to do, but I mean, he's putting more Kenkar on Patreon, which is awesome. And other creators that have done Kickstarter projects, that like, look at Dagger, it's doing gangbusters for them now.
yeah.
And I still give him shit about not asking me, but every chance I get. But
course you do.
Of course I do.
Yeah.
You know,
why
when
would-
you've been in comics for 29 years, you can give people shit. As long as you do it with a smile, you can give people shit.
All right. Good advice. I'll take a note of that.
You know, in you know, another 22 years or however long it'll be for you, but yeah, it's kind of great. Like, it's really
Yeah.
great. And with Cam, working with Cam, it's opened up a whole bunch of new opportunities as well, which is awesome. So
Yeah.
it's about just being, you know, having your eyes open and seeing what's coming,
Yeah.
and what you can do with it. So is Wildflower something you would put out on your own, or are you looking for a
Yeah.
publisher?
I think it's very interesting as well because I think with Wildflowers, I always thought about either Dark Horse or Image, and maybe I'll do that one day. I just don't. I'm not being like this is what I want right now because I think
Yeah.
the level of success now comes in all different forms, shapes and forms. Now you're not successful if you're just being published by Marvel. A lot of my friends now who have been there are like, I need to get away and do my own stuff. Like there's a status there for sure, that is the same as satisfaction. So I
Well,
think,
it's like anything. Like,
yeah,
comics is like movies. It's like music, where there's a small percentage that are doing extremely well, and you know, I tip my hat to them, and the
yeah,
rest just are working. And when I started off, Marvel and DC was the end goal for almost everybody.
yeah,
But as we moved along, it sort of became less and less so, to the point now where you see creators like yourself who, you know, most 27, 20 year olds 10, 15, 20 years ago, all they're thinking about is Marvel and DC, whereas you're like, maybe. And it's exciting,
yeah.
you know, because you
It
do
is
have your own
exciting.
stories to tell.
We're definitely lucky in that sense. We have all these platforms now, like you have people just doing weekly web comics or whatever, and they're just smash hits. I know I have comics I follow that they post maybe every few days, and I'm like, I'm hooked on it. But I think we are lucky in that sense. Like we have so many tools now for free, and we can share whatever we want and what stories we want to tell. Yes, there's some discipline and dedication to that that we need to meet. But when it's your own stuff, how could you not do it?
Yeah.
And especially with people responding that way, like just again the content like I've made and other friends of mine have made, and the support and feedback you get from that, you're just like, I can't believe there's even like people that, I can actually. It's not about profit. That's very nice because it just leads to making more. But it's just you're interested what I have to make and say about things. That's really cool, and we are very lucky in that sense. We have those platforms to do that now, and so quickly too. And yeah, so I was just reading what this
Yeah,
person.
that's a wise, and that's the thing. Like, you know, no one. I hope people don't think that I'm coming down on people who, you know,
Oh
still reading
no.
superhero books. I mean, I'm pretty open about my feelings about it. Where I think the most interesting stuff being done in comics right now isn't at Marvel and DC, and I
Yeah.
sort of outgrew, you know, what they were putting out. But I mean, to this day, Batman Year One is still probably top two favorite comic stories ever. And so there still is beauty and wonder in those projects, and there's just so much stuff now to take in. And that's why I think that I these creators who sort of are direct marketing and putting out books in whatever form they're putting out books, that isn't necessarily going through the system of working with an established publisher, you know, then going through Diamond to a retailer and then having to compete with shelf space of Superman number 938 with all its 17, you know, variant covers. That's the way to go. I mean, it's
I
so easy for a smaller book to get buried in a situation like
Yeah,
that.
you nailed it when you said you're not competing. When you're doing self publication, there is a way more satisfying sense of you're supporting, and it's everyone is supporting one another in that factor. I think when it comes to retail, it's like it's all about the numbers and what does better and this and that, and it's very competitive, and already you're up against so many talented people, and it is daunting. But then when you're doing like a book, like I'll support good friends of mine. Like again, there is more genuineness, and it's like we just want content, and it's supportive, and it's more focused, and it's an all good feeling overall compared to like, running to the store to get something and how well do you sell and everything. I think you really nailed it there. There is just a sense of like I can do this and all my friends, like it may not hit everyone, but it's got to hit those that really matter.
Yeah.
It feels, and that's the right boost you need, and then that will spread even more, hopefully, maybe. But
Well, and two, like, and I certainly feel for retailers who can only do what they can do. I mean, they're handed a phone book every month, and they have to
yeah,
go through that. And they all have budgets that they have to work with, and they have to make that work. And so, if there is something that they know they're going to sell that's going to help them pay their bills, then of course they have to they have to
of
bring
course,
that in. I'm not feeling resentful that they didn't bring in a book that I worked on as a result because they ran out on their budget. But yeah, it's so if you can sort of get around that situation and just go, look, I'm just going to completely lean into the stuff that I do. And if you like my stuff, you're probably going to really like this stuff because it's really, really, really what I want to do.
yeah. And that's when it falls into like your friends are supporting one another, and there's a category, and I think there's especially me and some other young female creators. We're all like I'm pretty like I like to support everyone and everything, but I like reading female content, and there's just a viewpoint there that I associate with more than like this superhero stuff. Yes, there's some stuff I really like, but it's still kind of aimed at an audience, and there's just some topics and moments I'm just like this. I don't care for that. Like I'd
Yeah.
rather read maybe about maybe some challenges in relationships or whatever, and like that, which superhero comics just doesn't. Oh, like I don't read enough, so maybe I'm missing on some stuff. But I just know there's some content my friends will make, and male and female, that's just a bit more personal, and I prefer that so much more.
It is, and there is such a wide variety of stuff out there now. It's just
There is.
it's amazing. And there's people that have said that nothing is being, nothing good is being done in comics right now. And to that, I would say there's never been a period where there's been
Oh my.
better stuff being done.
I've actually been loving reading like queer comics right now. I'm like hooked on that shit. It's
Oh yeah,
oh, it's great, and there's some beautiful books coming out, and it's just about relationships and drama, which we can all associate with. But then there's like a relationship with two people I have never had before.
hmm
That there's challenges that are just so interesting, and but there's just some beautiful content being made, and but yeah, I'm just hooked on that stuff right now. If there's comics I'm reading, it's like LGBT comics because I'm just like, oh my god, that drama is crazy. But it's just but it's really funny as well, and there's a
yeah.
whole other culture and humor there that I'm just like learning about. So again, it's just an insider. Like I think I really like the slice of life comics, and that obviously comes back from the Bruins and Ur Willie. It's like the day to
Yeah.
day and how people handle things and the stupid shit they have to deal with. I know I do. Even during COVID, there's still stupid shit I have to deal with.
Well, I'll
So
do. Yeah.
yeah, you do, but that's what's entertaining.
Yeah.
Instead of like superhero stuff is great and fantastical, it's a good distraction, but I like this is what people have to deal with and how do they overcome it? Could this maybe inspire you to deal with something in the future or maybe not do? I just think that's very informative and quite enticing.
Well, and I think that takes us to a really logical and good conclusion here, because we're just a little over an hour and a half now. We're trying to keep them at around an hour and a half.
So I
Uh,
can ramble on
well,
for
but we've been asking people at the end of these for a book recommendation. It doesn't have to be a comic. It can be a novel. It doesn't have to be recent. It can be something that you've had for a really long time, but just something that really resonated with you that you might want to share with us.
uh,
And it can be more than one if you have a stack.
Just a sec.
Okay.
I gotta go to the bedroom and get it.
It's on the nightside table.
Oh no, I can't find it. There we go. So this one I've had for a long time. This is a pretty well-known book.
Oh, I don't know this. What is this?
You don't know it?
I don't know this.
Oh my god! It's like it's Glenn Dillon, and it's been a while since I've read it, but it's all traditional. It's like watercolors. It's absolutely. It's so. I'm surprised you haven't seen this.
I'm writing it down right now. That looks amazing.
Yeah.
Have you read it?
Oh yeah, I read it. So it's Glenn Dillon. So it's GLYNDILLON.
And who publishes it?
And he, I'm trying to say it's Self-Made Hero. So this is a British artist. But yeah,
That looks
this guy,
very cool.
This guy is amazing. I met him one time at Leeds at Thought Bubble like years ago. Let's see if there's a few more. Show a few more panels here. But yeah,
Very
it's just
cool.
about, so you're following the life of this woman here, and it's just she's a little bit unusual. Like I think there's like some mental health issues going on here, but it's just her day working in like a toy store, her interactions with people, and then she meets like an older man who she's infatuated with, but things don't quite line up. But it's such an odd but very beautiful story, and it's just kind of like,
Well, the art is stunning.
oh, this.
How do I not know this artist? This is
I
terrible.
don't know.
Slipped through the cracks.
Well, what's happened, Troy, is you love Glenn Dillon, but now you hate him.
No. I hold those blustery attacks for private conversations.
But yeah, this book, I've had this for a couple of years now, and I need to reread it again. It's a deep read, and there's just some stuff, like you do need to read it a few times, because sometimes this woman, you're having the internal dialogue of hers, she has like OCD, and just other wacky stuff going on in her head, and you're just like, what is going on? And it's such a ride, and there's some moments it's just such an emotional ride of like the different characters and how she deals with situations. But I think this book especially kind of renaissance with me quite a bit on like just different moments in my life and people I've met. But this book is like, it's not only just stunning to look at, but just to read, it's great. Like, everyone get this book.
Cam, did you have one as well?
Well, just while we were waiting for Rossi there, I lied about the Frederick Peters thing. I picked this up and I forgot that
What's that one?
Lupus. Black and white. I haven't read it yet. I just picked up.
Frederick?
It's Frederick Peters, yeah.
Oh, he's so good. I met him at Thought Bubble, like the same year I met Glenn. Oh God, I crushed so hardly. He's such a lovely Frenchman. But I have a few of his books too. But he's so nice. Like I think I have some of his older stuff, and I brought it over, being like, "Hi, can you draw this?" He's like, "Oh, love, this is so old." I'm like,
no.
Oh my God, you have no idea, Troy. I was just like melting at the spot, and I'm just like.
Well, Troy got me onto him, and yeah, I've been reading.
I didn't even know that book was out. So I'm blown away. This is amazing. I have literally been looking at tiny lines for way too long. I haven't been paying attention to what's going on.
Like those are older books too.
I know.
But that's the thing. I love finding old stuff like that. Like Frederick Peters, I fucking love his stuff. I think I read Blue Pills first. That was my first book I read by his, and it's so good. Oh.
Yeah, Alma is my favorite as well. Cycle Cleveland is talking about Alma. I think that's an amazing series.
Yeah.
Well, I'll throw one out there too. I wasn't going to, but I'll throw one out there. So actually, my computer is moving because I actually have it stacked on some books. But the one I'll pull out is the one I just recently. And I mean,
the
everyone.
computer falls back.
No, it just got a little lower. So it's not at that magical height anymore. But and it's I mean everyone knows Daniel Close, but I just look at that glare off of
Wow, I can't read the title.
I know because it's silver. It's Patience. There we go.
Patience. Okay.
So I just actually finished that the other day, and it's been out for a few years now. But
Cool.
really great. It's him being Daniel Close, but really doing something sort of genre specific in kind of a weird time travel tale. And I mean, if you like Daniel Close, you'll dig it. But it's is that his most recent work? I can't remember. Anyway, really enjoyed the heck out of it. It was a really good read.
Enjoyed the heck out of it. Now that's
Enjoyed the heck out of it.
Enjoyed the heck out of it. I don't know why, but I really like that. It's so wholesome.
It is. Well, I left the swang for you. You only dropped one F-bomb, so that's not too bad.
I did. I think I said like, well, I won't repeat it now, but I nearly catched myself there. But yeah, there's a few times I'm like, was that necessary, Rossi? I'll just keep going, keep going.
Well, I had the over/under at 12, so you've done well.
Thanks. I try, guys. I'm trying to get better at these.
Well, you think that's a good spot, Cam?
Yeah, I think so. That was another great conversation, guys. Yeah. And yeah, on the book recommendation, I really like that. I think it's
that was awesome.
Yeah, I'm gonna talk you for that new Frederick Peters book. Did they have another copy there? Or do I got to order?
So I'll next time when cause we'll be swapping out to get Mikhail's commission. When that's done, I'll give it to you.
Yeah.
There you go. You're connected. You're fine.
Oh yeah.
Good grief. It's like, oh, can you give me the goods? Yeah.
Well, I wanted to thank Rossi for coming on tonight.
Well, thanks for having me. This was so nice. It was great to see both of you because it's been yoinks.
It has.
I know.
Greatly
you're
appreciate
so hairy, gloriously hairy.
Well, Cam especially, I can't do much up here, but I can do the heck out of this. But.
You're bushy down there. That compensates.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And thanks to everybody for tuning in as well.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, guys. And I think, it was another awesome conversation, and we're getting more consistent with doing this every Wednesday. So we typically don't have. Well, we knew Rossi was hopping on last week, but lots of good times coming, and we're gonna get Rossi on here a lot more often now. So.
Oh boy. Are you sure about that? You want to hear me spew about more nonsense?
Well, the plan is to eventually, and I don't think it's really letting the cat out of the bag, but we want to do kind of more of a round table every once in a while. So we would definitely, we have more than because we can put 6 people on, I believe. Cam, is that it? On one of these?
Yeah. 6 screens.
Yeah.
Well, you've got so many new members in Inky Knuckles now. Like you're getting people like I know. I'm just like, all right, I gotta get my game on here because you're getting all these amazing artists. I'm like, oh shit, this is so cool. Bit daunting.
I was pushing some of my buddies on Cam, so.
Oh yeah. Oh, I know.
Yeah.
You're always saying, Cam, like I can't take any more, but then there's like 10 more people. It's like.
Well, we kind of have a couple just surges occasionally, but we've been chatting with a couple guys, Brandon and Jim specifically, for a while now.
Mm-hmm.
It's just kind of timing how it all worked out.
Oh,
so
yeah. No, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun.
I've been following Brandon's work for years, so I was very excited when you got him on board. I was like, what? Very cool. It's very cool.
Mr. Nixie hooked that one up, and I'm very grateful. So.
Awesome.
Yeah, that was great.
Well, thanks again, everyone, and we will see you soon.
Yes, have a good night, guys.
Good night.
Bye, bye, bye.